Danish Folk Society took an option on about 25,000 acres here and then went back up north and sold it to Danish immigrants. Approximately 100 families moved down here. They bought land for, at that time, $6 an acre.
Settled in 1894 by a small group of Danish immigrants, DANEVANG grew into a tiny farming community 70 miles southwest of Houston.
They had a problem because when they first came down, they tried to raise the same crops that they raised up north, and that didn't work. And then after a couple of years, they found out that cotton would grow well here, so everybody changed over to raising cotton. Corn has become the largest crop here now.
Irvin Wynn's father was the first male born here. They grew cotton, raised families, lived the American dream.
This community was pretty much isolated for quite a few years.
Isolated still nearly 100 years later. Even in 1990, there was just a single convenience store here located off of a 2-lane highway. This is where Rosemary Diaz vanished.
The last time she was seen alive, November 24th, 1990.
I remember that time, such a big question mark. Oh, how could this happen? Where was she? Where was she?
Pastor Lawrence Matula from St. Robert's Catholic Church in El Campo did Rosemary's quinceañera.
It's coming of age, and at the same time, it's an act of thanksgiving to God for not only her life, but the family. She always struck me because of her dedication to studies. She was quite an intelligent little girl.
She was a vibrant, full of energy, full of life, 15-year-old who wanted to, she already knew she wanted to be a teacher. She knew she wanted to work with kids. She loved to go dancing. She was, a member of, the choir, so she played the flute. She just was always just trying to help other people.
Irma Diaz, one of Rosemary's sisters, remembers watching out for Rosemary, wanting to keep her out of trouble.
How much of an age difference between you and her?
There's about 10 years.
Okay. So, but you were still the big sister.
Yes. When she would go to dances, she would go with my mom and dad. She would, hang out with friends that were in our church. So it's kind of, she was a good girl. She was a very good girl.
Rosemary babysat Irma's children, but for spending money, Rosemary had limited options in DANEVANG.
We don't have a lot of job opportunity in this little bitty community. We have the co-op, the store, and the post office. The post office doesn't hire part-time help. Teenage kids, young kids with their first job. My children worked at the co-op, for a summer job. Rosemary worked at the store for a summer job.
On November 24th, 1990, Rosemary was working at Dane's Country Store alone.
I remember that she wanted to go to a dance, and my parents couldn't make it that time, and I told her, I said, well, we'll go another time. That band will come back and we'll go another time. And she says, I have to work anyways, and so she was gonna work at the store.
Close to 8 p.m. that night, customers came to the store only to find it empty.
I was brand new. I'd been on patrol maybe a week.
Mark Tijerina, one of the first deputies on the scene, remembers customers who wanted to buy something at the store calling the sheriff's office.
Nothing seemed out of the ordinary. The store is pretty much intact. We walk in, the register's there, the money's in the register. There's a soda fountain machine next to the counter. It is slightly moved, but not damaged or destroyed. The store's not, a mess, not in disarray. Nothing really that jumps out at us telling me that something's wrong, other than no one's in the store.
Investigators could find no eyewitnesses, and cameras weren't as prevalent as they are today. All they had to go on was the crime scene itself.
just like she just walked off the face of the earth. She just disappeared into thin air.
On the counter in the store, investigators found this picture.
That's the last picture of her alive.
That was the last picture, yeah. Last time anybody that we know of ever actually saw her alive.
Oddly, it was hand-dated November 25th, the day after Rosemary disappeared.
There was nothing missing. We counted the money and the gas. We took inventory of the store, and so far, we haven't found anything. Her purse, she had a large jam box radio. Her keys, her car, everything was here.
The soda machine cockeyed on the floor, the file cabinet dented. No one apparently had noticed that before. Were these signs of a possible struggle?
At some point, it became violent quickly and probably ended very quickly.
There was talk that Rosemary might have run away. But why would she leave her purse if she did, or her car? Detectives quickly began to focus on foul play. After all, she was alone, was just 15. Who knows what might have happened?
This is kind of a rural area. It's not even in town, so there wasn't like there would be a lot of people seeing what was going on. And so we did have a fear that this might have been a person traveling through and abducting her, maybe even a serial killer.
The newspaper headlines crying out for leads. Lisa Halliburton taught at El Campo High, where Rosemary went to school.
I remember that very vividly, because the whole high school was kind of in mourning and grieving over it. Everybody wondered what had happened to her. Everybody discussed the fact that they didn't think she had run away, that she wasn't that kind of girl that just ran away from home or ran off with somebody, that something had happened to her.
Father Matula vividly remembers searching the countryside for any sign of her.
Personally, I just had a feeling that she was around here somewhere. And what I did back then, I would drive out into the countryside and just look. And being from a small town, I knew what the buzzards meant. So I was looking for buzzards at times. And if I'd come across a slough or dilapidated building, I would stop and look in that, just out of curiosity, because everybody was searching.
It's a small town, a small community. You don't expect anything like that to happen here. I think everybody was just in shock, just unexpected. I think they first thought somebody had kidnapped her, and then when they started doing local searches, everybody was doing a search. They were searching the creeks and vacant homes and fields and pastures, and you know, that's what everybody was doing. Everybody was trying to find her.
And it was like I had woken up in this bad dream, and this is not happening. And she's, even when we didn't know, there wasn't a day that I didn't, pray for her or pray to know something. So she's always going to be in our hearts.
The DIAZ sisters were so convinced, or maybe so eternally hopeful, that Rosemary was still alive, that years later, even after they married, they kept their maiden names. They did so in the hope that one day Rosemary would come looking and they'd be easier to find.
This is the first Christmas that it's not going to be a Christmas for us.
The 15-year-old gone.
Another search is on this evening, this one for a teenager who may have been abducted from her job in Wharton County.
By this time, there were both formal and informal searches of the surrounding area. The FBI came in to help. Still, days turned to weeks, weeks to months, and months to years. Nothing. The case grew cold. Only later would there be a break. A tip from a perfect stranger, which would lead right to Rosemary, 25 years to the day after she disappeared.